morning again. Thank you all for sharing the practices that have helped you improve your districts and your schools. I'm sure that information was much appreciated, and hopefully you all gleaned something that you can take back and implement and build a process of your own. Right now, we are going to get to our next speaker, Dr. Kim Benton, a former federal programs director and the former superintendent of the Mississippi State Board of Education. She has partnered with the Alabama State Department of Education federal programs to facilitate a community of practice. While retired from her day-to-day operations of leading successful education reform in our neighboring state, Dr. Benton has not retired from school improvement. Currently, she serves on the National Center team of the Comprehensive Center Network. Dr. Benton continues to lead LEAs throughout the country with reform and improvement. This year, Alabama will join other states in offering this professional learning opportunity. The goal is to assist school-based teams with implementing evidence-based strategies, not resources, that address the specific needs of students to remove barriers that impede learning. We talked about that yesterday. Please welcome Dr. Benton as she comes to the stage to provide more detailed information about our upcoming community of practice.
All right, good morning. You have been sitting for a minute, haven't you? Just a minute? All right, so stand up if you're the one. Remember Dr. Chestnut? Stand up. I know you want to stand up. You're the one, right? Stand up, stand up. All right, I want you to raise your, yes, you already anticipated the question. Raise your hands, your arms above your head if you serve EL students. Woo, yay. Okay, y'all already started waving. You anticipated the next one. Wave your hands, snap your fingers if you serve homeless students. Woo, yeah, that's good. Now clap if you have a 21st century program. Oh, not so many of those. Okay, let's see what else we can do. Raise the roof if you have ever had to tell a colleague something was not reasonable, allocable, or necessary. All right, there you go. All right, I feel like I'm right at home. And take a seat if you serve students in poverty. If you don't see somebody sitting down, remind them that they do. Okay. Yep, as Dr. Williams said, I am a former, and as Dr. Chestnut said, always will be, a federal programs director, a Title I school principal, and I guess I'm helping with the next generation of federal programs directors because my daughter will be a federal programs director in Mississippi next year. So add her to your prayer list because this is what she asked me. Mama, who's Edgar? Can you relate to that? Yeah. So what am I here to talk to you about today? Students in poverty. Let me see if I can get this working. Okay. There we go. And as Dr. Williams said, I'm here today representing the National Comprehensive Center. And you might be saying, what in the world is the National Comprehensive Center? Well, this picture maybe helps you relate to that. In Alabama, you are served in regions, right? Right? And you have universities or other systems that support you in your local districts. And that's the same for state departments of education. So what you have here depicted is just a visual representation. There are 19 regional centers that actually support state departments of education. Here in Alabama and in Mississippi and in Florida, you are served by Region 7. Here's an important thing to know. Everything that comes out of those regional centers or the National Center, which is the group I'm with, the parent organization, it is FREE. Got it? Free. No cost and publicly available to everyone. And that's an important thing to share. We all like free things, right? Yeah? When they're giving out prizes in a minute, you're going to want them. I promise. All right, so that's who I represent. So thinking about poverty, talk to someone at your table. What comes to mind when you hear the word poverty? Go. 30 seconds. What comes to mind when you hear the word poverty? 10 more seconds. All right, somebody tell me what you thought of. Be brave. Speak out nice and loud. Food insecurity. Yep, I know I'm standing between you and lunch, but that is right. Food insecurity. What else? What else? Say it again. Doing a lot with a little. In the back. Thank you. What? Me. That's what he said. 2 kids in college. Now, that's an important point because poverty is relative. That's what I had a principal say. It's relative. You know, some folks that are very well off might look at someone that is not as well off as being impoverished, when in fact they're way above the national income level that would qualify you. So it's all relative. How many of you have ever participated in a poverty simulation? Okay. If you haven't, I encourage you to go through that experience. I've gone through that 3 different times, and every time it takes me to a different place. Say it again. You have the personal experience. Yep. It's really, it's important because you think you know, but we don't know what we don't know about students that live in poverty or families that live in poverty. And you know, I thought about when I went through the simulation for the 3rd time, I saw my grandmother for the first time raising 8 children on the Cuba-Alabama line, $250 a week, and the children were 3 to 14 when she became a widow. You know, it helped me understand why food was so important to my daddy, because he went without. So it's all relative. So what does poverty look like across the nation? There are 11 million children in the United States of America that live in poverty. And that's important for us because we serve those children. They come into our schools and in our classrooms. Now, does anyone in here know offhand how federal poverty is defined for a family of 4? What's the income level, you think, for a family of 4? Anybody want to guess at that? Somebody said 24,000. Somebody give me one more guess. 35, somewhere in between. The latest census data, the criteria for meeting the federal definition pre-tax income was $29,678, so pretty close to $30,000. Now I want you to think about that. The gentleman in the back, 2 children in college. Now think about that. Could we survive as an individual, or let alone a family of 4? It's hard. So what do we know, and what do you know about poverty in your state? I want you to take out your device and pull up on your device a chart that's going to tell you where Alabama sits in terms of child poverty. Is it working? Please tell me it is. Okay. When you get there, you're going to see the map like you have pictured on the slide, and where the green box is, if you will filter that by child poverty, you can see a ranked list. When you find where Alabama is, somebody stand up and tell me. All right, the 47th in the nation. Somebody else stand up and tell me what percent of child poverty. 21.75. I heard you. You don't have to even stand up. All right, 21, that's 1 in 5, right? 1 in 5 children. Now, I saw the slides and you saw the slides this morning. It's relative. I saw slides in, I think, Butler County, what was it, 83%, something like that? And in Jefferson County, I'm sure yours looks a little different from that, but you know what it is. And the same with our first group of schools, Pike County. Whew, that was a test. I remembered the 3 districts. Now, I'm going to ask you a rhetorical question. Do you know what the poverty level is in your schools and districts? It's important. It's really important because poverty is cross-cutting and it impacts teaching and learning, right? So moving things along just a little bit, but in the essence of time, I want you to see some of the statistics that came out in November of 2023 related to what we do know about children in poverty. It's tiny print, but you have the slide deck. So if I kind of move a little faster over some things, you have access to it, and plus you'll have my contact information if you want a deeper dive. But what we know about the children, the 11 million children, is that a large percentage of those, as our gentleman in the back said, they go without food and housing. I was a principal of a Title I school for 10 years in Meridian. Many of y'all know where Meridian is, just right across the state line. And we had a lot of mobility. Rent came due or whatever with our housing, and utilities weren't paid, and it was a lot of movement, a lot of mobility. We know that they experienced food insecurity. 3 out of 4 are children of color. And you see the things that are listed there. Many, many of them are preschool age. Another thing is that of those 11 million children in poverty, guess what? More than half of them live with half of the federal income, $15,000 a year for a family of 4, pre-tax. It's hard. It's really hard. And I bet as this individual right over here, I can't see, in the purple was telling us, it's tough, right? It's tough. It's trade-offs and decisions. And we also know we're neighbors. We know that most of our children are in the South, where we are. We see poverty creeping in your classrooms, and the fact that many of these children don't have access to preschool. And I heard someone talking about a waiver that was available for homeless students for pre-K that they found out about yesterday and how important that was. Disruptions in attendance, the experience we have already mentioned, food and housing, unmet health needs, and exposure to adverse childhood experiences. Some folks call it a cascade or an accumulation of disadvantages. And you know what? That can get us a little discouraged and sad. But this is not about stigmatizing children or labeling them, and I want you to hear that one more time. While we're talking about children in poverty, I'm not saying go put a little label on them, to go put a little pink ribbon on them or a green ribbon and say, let me do something special for you. But I am saying we need to be aware of things that come in the backpack, figuratively speaking, that we may not be aware of that influence our behavior or our ability to focus or so many other things. And in doing so, we can move the needle for all of our children. So, and the good news is that as schools, we're in a position to control what we can control. We can't control everything that's external to the schoolhouse, but what can we control inside the schoolhouse? Somebody talk to me. What can we control? The provision of daily, high-quality, finish the sentence. I heard it, instruction, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I'll tell you, there are heroic things going on in our school to support students in poverty. Take a look at the list on in green here. And when I go around and speak to groups of educators, we do this. We actually go through the activity, but I'm just kind of moving through it because of our time. And they tell me these things, and these are things, actually, some of the educators in Alabama have given me some of these ideas when I spoke at Mega Conference last year. Things that they do for feeding families, sending home those backpacks on the weekend. that looks like a backpack, so nobody has to know. If I need one, I take one. Supporting families with resources. Anybody have a washing machine in one of their schools? Yep, it's important. Book studies on poverty, just to create awareness. The one thing about a book study, is it enough? No, absolutely not. And other things, focusing on social emotional learning. We heard our teacher from Pike County talking about that today. Response to intervention. Here's one, looking at the policies that we have in place. When I was a principal, I was so excited because we had a dress code and everybody was going to wear uniforms. And you know what? That was going to level the playing field for everybody. It was a start. And then I realized we had a little requirement in that dress code that everybody had to have their shirt tucked in and wear a... Now, I'm going to have to make a decision. Am I going to be able to have milk for my family or buy a belt? I didn't even understand that. But when we realized and when we know better, we do better, right? So our teachers were real creative. We learned to blouse those shirts. Boys, girls, it didn't matter. Who needed a belt? We didn't know. We didn't look. You know, we looked at our policies. But that's something that's really, really important to do. And then the last one's what we're going to talk about, strengthening instruction. When you look at the graphic on the right, tell me what that, well, actually talk at your table. What does that mean to you? What does that say? Look at that graphic. What does that say? What do you think it means? All right, who wants to be brave and tell me what they think that signals? You know you're right because it's your interpretation. So it's a safe thing to give me an answer to. You're federal programs directors. You're somewhere on there. Right? What does it signal? All right, this young lady says students should be the focus and they're at the top. Somebody else? It takes everybody to reach the top. Somebody else? Where's the SEA? At the bottom. They're making those policies and rules and all those things that should support getting to the top, right? You see, everybody does play a part in meeting the students. There's a whole lot of students in Alabama you're trying to reach, just a few at the state, a few more at the district. You see how it goes? Who's closest to the students? Say it again. And support staffs. So the rest of us have to do everything in our power to have those strong policies and put those supports in place to help those closest to the students. And that's our teachers, because the one thing that we can change for boys and girls that are in impoverished conditions is the quality of instruction, to make sure that every single day they get the very best instruction. And that's what I want to share with you today. 2 years ago, the Supporting Students in Poverty Toolkit was released from the National Comprehensive Center. And guess where we had our first presentation on the toolkit? Y'all should get this. That was kind of a freebie there. And where? In Alabama at the mega conference. So that was our first opportunity to share the resources. Now I'm going to ask you if you will just stay with me, and we're going to kind of pretend we're on an getting ready to take off in an airplane. I'm going to give you the 30,000-foot view of this toolkit. Then Ms. Brittany is going to pass out a flyer with a QR code where you can access the toolkit, as well as a printed copy of some of the sample things that are part of the toolkit. So you'll actually get to touch it and see it if you'll just stay with me, because I'm fixing to speed it up. I made eye contact with Dr. Killingsworth, so I'm going to speed it up a little bit. Here we go. The Supporting Students in Poverty Toolkit. How much does it cost? It is free. When you get the QR code in a minute, it will take you to the National Comprehensive website where you will see a landing page like this. This resource is, you can print out things from the resource, but you don't have to. It's very intuitive, and it's an online tool. Who benefits from this toolkit? Anybody and everybody. It doesn't matter if you are a high school teacher or an elementary teacher or a middle school teacher. It doesn't matter if you are in a rural setting or inner city. It doesn't matter. I've used these strategies with pre-service teachers, alternate route teachers. In fact, those that are provisionally certified, they seem to have been really excited about it, because you know what? Everything is a priority for them, which means not a lot is, because they're struggling, trying to figure out, what do I need to do first or second, and so forth. I will tell you the strategies. When you look at them, you're going to say, well, we know that. I don't know about you, but sometimes just because I know it doesn't mean I always do it. I ate that cookie yesterday, even though I didn't need to. Right? You know what I mean? Sometimes we don't always do those kinds of things. So let me tell you how the toolkit is organized. We love graphics at the National Center. It's organized around 5 key instructional strategies. 5 big strategies. Listen to these and see if you think this is something that would benefit your teachers. Creating conditions for learning. Yeah? All right. What about building vocabulary and verbal skills and language? Is that important? Yes, not just for students in poverty, but for all students. What about teaching strategies to help students monitor their progress? I heard something today, Dr. Marlowe, about data notebooks or monitoring data, or it may have been from the BAR program. I heard that. Also, cultivating a nurturing environment. I just heard Jefferson County talk about the importance of culture, and then building and embracing relationships. Give me a thumbs up if you heard something that you think would benefit your teachers. Okay, I see a few thumbs up. Very good. 5 instructional strategies. Those strategies are broken down into some supportive actions, a total of 24. Now, how many of you know the name John Hattie? Robert Marzano, Charlotte Danielson, all those people that have been around for years. All of these strategies align with evidence-based practice, and they are free. They are not related to a program, a product, a company, or anything else. It's just about improving solid teaching practices. The strategies within the toolkit, they are not designed to start at 1 and go to 5. You could, but you don't have to. They're designed to start with where your needs are and where your interests are. And I'll tell you how some schools are doing that. What are you interested in? Let me tell you something else about these. And you would expect me to say good things because I'm one of the authors in the program, of the resource. But it doesn't mean anything, if it's not helpful to a teacher, if it's not helpful to a principal, because they are closest to the students. And that was the primary target. What they are saying to me, and I'll let you hear a testimonial in just a second, is this just makes sense. You know, I forgot about this. It's validating a lot of their current practices and then causing them to stretch in additional ones. For every one of the practices, and I think that's what Brittany and our colleague Carla are passing out, you're just getting an example of what goes with each of these strategies. So let me go back here so I don't get distracted. Well, I can't go backwards, but for the charts that you just saw, each of the strategies, they have a guidance document that looks like this. Are y'all getting these? Are you seeing them? Yes? Okay, everybody's got a different one. It doesn't matter. I just wanted you to get a feel for it. Why doesn't it matter which one you have today? Because the format is the same. Does this look pretty inviting to you? Is it too long? If you've gotten your handout, it's pretty short. They're like 2 to 3 pages each. They're all organized around 4 questions. Why is this important? There's your evidence. Not a dissertation, but something that's in practical terms, easy to relate to. Why is it important to embrace family expertise and experience? What might it look like in classrooms? Self-check and reflection, that's probably my favorite part, and I hear from a lot of teachers that's their favorite part of each of these little, I call them briefs, that accompany the strategies. Why? Because it causes me to think about, hold the mirror up to what I'm currently doing, and then to think about how I can stretch my practice and get a little better today or more insightful today. And if I'm already doing it, it validates I'm on the right track. And if not, it causes me to think, well, if I could do this, maybe I could get a better return on the time that I'm investing in teaching. And then finally, where can I go for more resources? That's what it looks like for teachers. But if you go back to the inverted triangle, teachers aren't the only one that work with students, teachers and support staff. We also know that principals play a key role. In fact, the Wallace Foundation says the principal's only second to the teacher in having the greatest impact on instruction, right? So what can principals do? Things like centering their conversations around instruction. Building strong PLCs. You know, I don't know if it's like this in Alabama, but if I ask who has PLCs in their school, every hand goes up. And then when I start asking other questions, I find out it's just a faculty meeting. I don't mean that ugly, because you know what? I looked like that at one time until I knew more and I learned more. You know, we don't want to mix up the two because they're very different things, but just insights like that. All of these things here, again, I'm not telling you anything new. Evidence-based practice is not new. High-impact strategies is not new, but being intentional about what we do with those, that's where the magic is. That's where we're going to get the return on investment. All right, district folks that are in here, that's you. You play a role too. How can you support principals in supporting teachers? So everything is kind of aligned, not kind of aligned, it is aligned. And it's still thinking about 5. Everything can't be a priority. Where can we get the biggest return on investment? So you see the structure and the thought behind it. In your slide deck that you all have access to, you have this slide and the QR code. It's also on the flyer that you received. When the QR code here will take you to the resource page of the National Comprehensive Center. So I was a little strategic in that because I want you to be able to go to that site because you snapped your fingers that you serve English language learners, or a common term now is multi-language learners. You serve foster children, you serve homeless students, you serve children, you serve children. You serve children. Remember, not so much about the label, but about the children, but seeing where we can better support them. The National Center has lots of resources that are free, program agnostic, and available to you to use. But when you go to this particular site, in the search engine there, if you type in poverty, you'll get a whole array of resources and things out there that you may find helpful in supporting students in poverty. And I will tell you that the toolkit is 2 years old and it's continuing to evolve. How does it continue to evolve? Because of practitioners like you. As we go around, since the launch of this product, we started communities of practice in states. Mississippi, of course, is my home state, and I asked them if they would be the guinea pig for me, and let's practice and see if it's worth educators' time to have a community of practice. So they did that, and they did it twice. So I thought that was pretty good. You know, the first time they did it because I asked them to, and the second time they did it because they saw value in it. And I thought that was incredibly important. And then Utah is in the middle of having one community of practice for educators in their state, and we'll wrap that up Thursday. And then the good news is that Dr. Killingsworth wanted to provide that opportunity to you. So what do we mean when we say a community of practice? This is a voluntary thing. Nobody's going to make you participate. If you want to participate, if your schools want to participate, it's voluntary. We do ask that participants stay engaged in the process with us because the process includes 3 90-minute sessions. That's it. It's all virtual. I'm coming to you today because I could just cross the state line and do it. But it's also an opportunity for us to have a broader reach and allow individuals from across the state to meet. In Utah, I mean, I haven't been to Utah many times in my whole life, but I'm making fast friends with folks in Utah, and I feel like we've developed a rapport and a relationship because we can do that now. That was one of the good benefits of COVID. If there was a silver lining, that was certainly one. 90-minute sessions. You will get POUs for participation. The toolkit is not one more thing. How many of you write an ASIP? Every hand should be up. Don't go to sleep yet. ASIP, everybody. What you would be required to do to earn your POUs for participating in the 3 90-minute sessions would be to submit your ASIP and include how you will use the toolkit strategies. How will you incorporate those in a PLC or at one of your schools? But how will you make sure that you're supporting your teachers with providing those high-impact strategies, not just to students in poverty? Remember, everybody's going to benefit. Everybody. Another benefit of participation is it's going to help you expand your network. You'll meet colleagues from across the state, just like the spotlight on schools today occurred. You're going to learn from one another. I will tell you that I will not be doing all the talking in the 90-minute session. We go to breakout rooms. You get to share things with one another. Sometimes I'll have teachers that are using strategies come in and share. It's meant to be interactive, and actually it goes pretty fast. You don't even realize you're in 90 minutes because about the time we get started, before you know it, we're wrapped up. We're wrapped up with our time together. And it's all intended to help narrow the achievement gaps. Let me tell you this. While we were doing our data search yesterday, I went and looked at the academic proficiency of your economically disadvantaged group in the state. And like Mississippi, you have a gap. Your gap is not nearly as wide as it is in Mississippi. So kudos to you for seeing your children and being very intentional with the supports that you're providing. But there's still, statewide, was a 12 percentage point difference statewide in the aggregate for proficiency, ELA, math, and science for students that are economically disadvantaged when compared to those non-economically disadvantaged. Then I picked 3 random high schools. One in the southern part of the state, one in the central part of Alabama, and one in the northern part of Alabama. And it just so happened that one school was an A, one school was a C, and one school was not where they wanted to be yet. You know what I mean by that? And guess what? All of them had gaps for students in poverty. So just higher than the state. Higher than the state gap, a lot higher than 12. So I'm just saying that I told you that the strategies here, there's something for everybody. I hope that you will consider being part of our community of practice. Do I have time to show this video, Brittany? It's 4 minutes. Okay. Can Joshua? By the way, I met one of my former students here yesterday. Joshua, you got to do this right. This is why we do what we do. The fact that Joshua recognized me from 20 years ago when I was his principal, I had to hug him because I thought maybe the aging process is not so bad, right? All right, Joshua, will it work for us? All right, here we go. This is Jennifer Ishii, a high school teacher in Mississippi.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Ishii. I'm a curriculum specialist at Taylorsville Attendance Center in Smith County, Mississippi. I was first introduced to the Supporting Students in Poverty with High Impact Instructional Strategies Toolkit at a seminar for school improvement in Starkville, Mississippi in February. When I walked into the seminar, Dr. Benton had a wonderful PowerPoint ready, and she walked us through all the parts of the toolkit. And the whole time I was thinking, we need this. We need this right now. So as soon as I got back to Taylorsville, I went to my administrator and I said, okay, I need a solid 30 minutes in the next faculty meeting so that I can go through this toolkit with my people. I said, I don't want to be overwhelming, so I'm just going to start small. The beauty of the toolkit is that you don't have to go in order. While there are 5 components, we started with 4. Building relationships. We can have the greatest written lessons. We can have huge plans for student engagement, but if our students don't think we care, they're not going to be engaged, no matter what we do. So we started there. One of the greatest things about starting there was when I walked into the faculty meeting and told the teachers what we were going to do, I got a lot of eye rolls, pushbacks, heavy sighs, the whole meal deal. But after, about 2 days later, one of my teachers came back to me and she said, okay, Miss Ishii, I have to tell you, I was the main one rolling my eyes thinking this is a waste of my time and one more thing for me to do. She said, but I remembered years ago I had read an article about a teacher who asked her students anonymously what I wish my teacher knew. So she did that. She submitted it through Google Classroom, so every one of our 9th grade students had the opportunity to respond to her. And we got some silly answers. You know, I wish my teacher knew my favorite color was blue. But we also got some serious things that were really able to change the way that we instructed our kids. For example, one of our students who was not a high-performing student and we had a hard time keeping on task wrote, I wish my teacher knew that I'm not a good student, but I'm a very good dancer. So we took that information, we were like, you know what? This is probably a kinesthetic learner. Let's come up with some way that we can tap things out our arm, or we can dance, or we can touch our toes, some way to help this kid remember. And when we tapped into that potential and we started thinking about what other ways can we differentiate our instruction, what other ways can we reach out and create relationships with our students, it changed our entire teaching dynamic. Now, we were at the end of the school year, so we only got through 2 lessons in the building of the relationships, but that was creating the relationships and then teaching perseverance. But we have big plans for next year. We plan next year to go from finishing out the number 4 and jumping over to 5, where we really reach out into the community and get parents involved. And then from there, we can go back to creating a learning environment, making sure our kids know data, all the good things. I'm really excited about what's coming down the pipe, and I think it's a great toolkit. I think it's definitely going to be beneficial to all students, not only those in poverty.
Thank you for letting me share that, because again, to me, that's the power, is when you have something, you think it's a good idea, but when the people that it's intended for find value in it, because they could pick anything, and it was something that she felt helped her, helped other teachers, and you see, it was validating to that veteran teacher. So I hope you will consider joining us. Again, it's 3 90-minute sessions. I'll show you the calendar. Our first one is May the 15th for a 90-minute session, and I promise it won't be all speaker talk like I'm doing for you now. It is meant to be more engaging. Some of the things that I just ran through, we would have actually talked to neighbors and stood up and talked a little bit more, because we know the power of that, of engagement for our children, and it's true for us as adults. In Mississippi and Utah, they're doing a little This is a template. I don't care about the template. The thing is, when you learn something new, how will you implement it? You've got an ASIP plan. So we talked about in Alabama, use your ASIP plan. You can use this template if it helps you, but that's all we would be looking for from your participation in the process and to attend. I will tell you in closing, it's not one more thing. It connects to your Elliott observations, your ATOD evaluations, whatever you have in your district. And how do I know that? I know because in the community of practice in Mississippi, they said, hey, can you go and crosswalk to our professional growth standards? I said, yep. And so that's what we did here. If you go to the national sites, you'll see that example. In Utah, he said, well, hey, Dr. Benton, we know the toolkit aligns to what we're doing with our standards. Would you look at that? And I did, so I'll leave them with that tomorrow. So we can do what you want to do because it's not my community of practice. It belongs to educators in Alabama. So just think about that. To join, let's see, here are the dates. May the 15th, June the 5th. We do realize that's a summer. That's why we'll do it quickly in the morning and give you back the rest of your day. But I think it's time well spent, not just for the PLUs, but because you're together with colleagues, thinking deeply about how to best serve the students in your care. And then, the July one, we'll see who signs up, but we may have a little meet and greet face-to-face at Mega if folks are there, but we will plan to have our final session the week after Mega, that afternoon. Here is where you can register to be a part of this community of practice, and our goal is to help you best meet your economically disadvantaged students through high-quality instruction. Building the expertise of your teachers. Is that it? Okay.